that kind of thing. And so we needed to come up with a homegrown fiscal consolidation policy. What did we do? We went to Senchi, and we called all the stakeholders, and we had, a consensus around the homegrown fiscal consolidation policy. That was the policy we eventually took into a program with the International Monetary Fund to begin to turn things around. So I suggested that he hold a Senchi-like forum so that you can build a consensus around, growing the economy. But it doesn't look like it's something they are interested in. But the economy definitely is in crisis. I mean, it's obvious for everybody to see. Businesses are complaining, especially after the banking sector clean out. It created quite a difficulty. It's wiped out Ghanaian capital. That's the point. And up to now, the president had promised that they were going to pay everybody. There are many people who have not received payment for their deposits that were wiped out by the banking sector clean out. Aside from that, the debts, almost 20-something billion, that has been placed on as part of the public debt, has affected the economy. And also the freebies during the elections, free water, free light, and all that. I mean, the finance minister came and said that they spent 19 billion on COVID relief. That's huge.
That's huge.
And so the indebtedness has to be paid for somehow. And so that's how come they've introduced all the new taxes and all that. But with the way the economy is going, something needs to give. And I won't be surprised if, this administration eventually goes into some sort of program with the IMF. I won't be surprised.
But they stated they've cleansed that sore or cancer of IMF, so why they're going back? And it's also purported it was because of the COVID-19, a situation that has never happened. So would it be fair for us to say yes, because of the COVID-19 situation that hit the whole world? Maybe.
No, it's easy for everyone to see that the economy was in crisis before COVID hit. In 2019, I mean, it was obvious that the rate of borrowing was excessive, and things were not going correctly. COVID just exacerbated it, but already the management of the economy was in crisis long before COVID arrived.
In connection with that, I mean, people spoke about your bosses with regards to the borrowings, and you spoke there's a need for a father to be able to leave a legacy for his children instead of, giving him everything he needs, he asks for. I've read some point he stated that he said, if the person dies, the father that has been able to leave legacy, the children will have something to lay hands on. Now, we have seen borrowings these days compared to the monumental edifices and the payment of the debts that we're going to do, especially with our forebears. What's going to happen? What are you foreseeing? What would you have done better if you had continued, or if you had come right after, the second term you lost?
Yeah, Kimo, even in traditional homes, you borrow money for something productive, something tangible. You borrow money to build a house or to re-roof your house, or to buy a bicycle to be able to ride to the farm. Mostly something that gives a return on investment. If it's school buildings, children are able to learn, you get more, educated people that, will be a good human resource for the country. If it's healthcare, you keep your citizens healthy and they're able to go back to work. If it's roads, you're able to facilitate the movements of passengers and goods across the length and breadth of your country. If it's airports, you're able to facilitate international and local travel. If it's your harbor, I mean, there's so many things that you borrow to put in place so that it enhances the productivity of your country and enhances the growth of your economy. And so in our time, I mean, you could look at our borrowing profile and see that it was going into two main things, into infrastructure to provide more roads, more hospitals, more schools, expand our ports and so on and so forth. And then also taking off high interest debt that we inherited. And so if we borrowed at an interest rate that was lower, then we use it to retire some of the high interest debts that had accumulated, especially the local debts, because that had mostly had a higher interest rate. So that's what a lot of the borrowing went into. We're criticized by our successors, as overborrowing. But like you were saying, a lot of what we borrowed for was tangible for people to be able to see. Several years later, you yourself are witness to what has happened from 120 billion cedis total public debt. Today we're almost hitting 400 billion, 370 something billion public debt, and what most Ghanaians ask is, what have we done with this money? It looks like most of it has gone into consumption rather than into providing the kind of infrastructure, that we need. It's only as an afterthought that suddenly they realize that, we must be doing some infrastructure. So Agenda 111 has been conjured. There's no transparency how the money is going to be, procured and all that. Is it going to lead to more borrowing, when we already have, such a high level of debt, hanging around the country's neck? So these are all things that we could build a consensus around if they were prepared to open up and involve everybody in doing so, but it doesn't look like they are willing to. So,
are you happy about some of the projects that have been left uncompleted? If you had come, talk about some of the e-blocks that are still in some of the areas, and I've seen expanse of houses, beautiful houses that are still standing that would have been to the benefit of Ghanaians. And how do you feel?
Actually, no reasonable Ghanaian can feel happy, when taxpayer funds are put into projects and they're not able to derive the benefit of the use of the project just because government changed, and so the projects were left standing, without being completed. It's not just the e-blocks. The e-blocks are one example, but there are also hospitals that we were building. Boga Central Hospital, we did the first phase, and there was a little left. We were supposed to get equipment from Saudi Arabia to finish equipping it, so that we could utilize the first phase. And we had also programmed the second phase. That has come to a standstill over the last 5 years. There are hospitals in other regions that we were putting up that also have come to a standstill. In many places, the wind has blown up the roofs of the buildings. Fire has burned some of the buildings. It's sad to see something like that, because, as I said during the campaign, it's not my money. The money didn't come from John Mahama's pocket. It's our money as a country, and so when it goes to waste like that, I think that it's not something that is it's reasonable at all. And so I think that government should advert its mind and try to finish some of those projects, including some of those that they themselves have initiated. I made a promise when I was campaigning that if we did win, we're going to focus on completing all abandoned projects before we initiate new projects. Yeah.
Right. I would like to see the picture that would be like if you had continued as a president, or if you happen to come after this turnoff from 2024. How would the picture be like?
Well, it's hypothetical now. The people of Ghana are supposed to have made a choice. And so I think that our focus now should be on, what's Ghana going to be like at the end of this 4 years. And when you know what it's going to be like, then you can now envision what it will be like under future NDC government. So I think that right now our focus should be on encouraging this president and this government to do what is right so that things get better, in our country, so that anybody who takes over in future can, move it to the next level.
So what's the state of NDC at the moment? Does 2024 offer any hope for the party?
Yeah, the party is in good shape. Morale is high, despite the setback we suffered. I've met most of the executives from all parts of the country. When we did the retreat in Ho, all our executives were there, our council of elders were there, everybody was there. And despite the setback, you can see that they have quite a high morale.
Right.
Our people are happy with the performance of the party in 2024. To have gone from where we were in 2016 and to have gained almost 1.5 million additional votes, I mean, that was a phenomenal achievement. We've also identified some of the loopholes, that we left open, for which we suffered
Losses.
the kind of losses that we did. Yeah. And that's what the retreats have been doing. They've been doing a post-mortem of every region and what happened within the region. And that is going to be a platform to create a learning experience so that in 2024 we don't have a repeat of some of those things. So morale is high. We're getting ready to start our reorganization, which will be next year. At the end of this year, we'll have an annual delegates conference, which will bring party people from all over the country to come and look at our constitution. We're going to have some amendments to our constitution, and then also discuss policy issues. And then early next year, I think the Functional Executive Committee have come out with a timetable for reorganization of the party. We'll start with branch elections, and then from there we'll go to constituency elections, then to regional, and then to national. And then the final will be the selection of a flag bearer to lead the party into the 2024 election.
So you believe, and the party believe, there's going to be a sustained, gain in votes and maybe quantum increase, considering the fact that the opposition is talking about breaking the 8?
Well, we think that the party has a very bright future, and with some of the work that is being done, it will be a more formidable foe in the 2024 election. We expect to gain more seats in Parliament and to become the majority party in Parliament. And of course, we're going to fight hard to also secure the presidential election in 2024.
Right.
So, I mean, NDC has won several elections in this country before, and I'm certain that in 2024, if the kind of work that we've started to do, bears fruit, 2024, the party should be able to come into government. And in addition, even for the sake of accountability, after 8 years, this government must be held accountable for its 8-year term, and nobody to hold them accountable than your opponents.
Yeah, right. So, flowing from 2020 elections, the NDC has tabled a number of electoral reform proposals. What is this intended to achieve?
It is normal. If you've been part of our electoral process from 1992, you remember the metal ballot boxes that we used in 92. And you remember some of the electoral processes, that existed at the time. We've come a long way, to, should I call them translucent ballot boxes? Because they are not. Glass ballot boxes, but you can see that there's nothing in it. Yeah. And then to counting in situ, to biometric registration, and all that, BVRs, and so we've come a long way, and it's because we have implemented reforms after every election. Because what the thinking is that every subsequent election must be better than the previous one. And so when we see some loopholes or some inefficiencies with the past election, then we implement reforms to make the next election better. And so after the last election, we sat and looked through what we thought. We set up about people who are conversant with this issue of electoral reforms, and we asked them to come up with proposals on, what proposals we'll present, to reform the election so that 2024 will be better than 2020. So they came out with a report. The party went through it, adopted it, and we've presented it to not only the Electoral Commission but several other stakeholders. And currently, our team that drafted the reforms is engaging with different civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, to sensitize them on the need for those reforms that we have presented. So that is going well, and it's my hope that it will receive a favorable response, so that we have a better election in 2024.
So, what would we expect from the NDC as an opposition party? Would it just be business as usual, or should we expect something different going forward?
Well,
Right.
Because you must give voice to the voiceless. And so it is for our party to point when government is going wrong, to hold government accountable and all that. And so far, I do think that the party is living up to its expectation, living up to expectations so far. There are many issues that have come up in Parliament, and the party's role in debating those issues and putting forward, what we think should be done right, has received favorable attention. And so I think that so far, so good. There are a few areas where I think we could have done better, especially with the vetting of ministers and appointees. But I think it was early yet, and the party hadn't settled down properly. But since then, I mean, if you look at the work that the minority is doing in Parliament, I'll say that they are holding their own, and I'm sure they'll continue to hold government to account.
The EC has asked the NDC to channel the suggestible reforms to the Inter-Party Committee. Can that vehicle champion the cause of the NDC?
But that's the most absurd request. Where is the Inter-Party Advisory Committee? Where are the offices? Where does it exist? IPAC is an advisory committee to the EC. And IPAC is housed by the EC. It's the EC that calls IPAC meetings. And so how can you ask that the letter be handed over to IPAC? Who is IPAC? I mean, these are some of the absurd things that this commission does, that make us have a certain feeling that it's hostile to our party, I mean, the right place to send the letter is to the Electoral Commission. And then they can table it at IPAC. Call an IPAC meeting and table it. But you can't say, take your letter to IPAC. Who is IPAC? Well, we've presented it. I've asked them to send it to them again. Address it, IPAC, care of Electoral Commission. And give it to Electoral Commission. IPAC, care of Electoral Commission. Whoever IPAC is, they should give it to that person. And then we can table it. And I think these things must be done by consensus. We must all come together. When you have an election that everybody accepts and is happy, with the results, it gives a certain legitimacy to even the person who governs. And so it's in the interest of the one who wins to even make sure that the election that you won is accepted by all, And so when you have these strange happenings and things like that, it doesn't give much confidence, to the Electoral Commission that is supposed to be a neutral arbiter in terms of, our electoral process. The posturing of the Electoral Commission before, during, and after the elections has just shown a certain hostility towards our party, But we've learned our lessons. Elections are won on the ground, not in the Supreme Court. Next time we'll take due notice of that. We're going to fight the election on the ground and make sure that the right things are done.
In your 2016 State of the Nation address, I'm still coming back to infrastructure. You said, and I quote, "We are providing and building a better health infrastructure and providing more modern equipment to meet the current and further needs of our population and people." Now, you were doing this for people not to understand, but we didn't know COVID was coming. I mean, imagine you didn't put those facilities, and it was reported nationwide and worldwide. It was in some of those facilities, some of the, very prominent people had their lives saved.
Yeah.
What was in your mind when you were doing that? When people thought, "Why didn't you give the money into our pockets for us to eat?"
Yeah. We could anticipate that some pandemic will come, because remember, Ebola had swept through West Africa, and we had the experience of what happened in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea when Ebola struck. Their public health infrastructure was so weak that it just went like wildfire through the population. It had to take President Obama, Angela Merkel, and some of the... After I gave my UN speech, because I was ECOWAS chairman at the time, and so I called for help from the international community, and it was responded to by the UN. And so the UN coordinated. I spoke with President Obama, Angela Merkel, and all of them. And they brought what we call field hospitals to be able to take in the people who had been affected by Ebola. Luckily, Ghana had a much better public health system than any of those countries have. And then, luckily, no single case of Ebola was found, entered our country during the period by the grace of God, even though we had done all the preparation and were ready in case we identified any case and all that. That would have put a lesson through us that, look, you need to speed up expanding your public health infrastructure, because when will the next pandemic come? And indeed, a conference had been held, talking about pandemics, because SARS had come through, bird flu, I mean, all these kinds of things had happened. And so we're all being encouraged to expand and deepen our public health systems so that we'll be able to provide good health care to our people. And so it was on that program that we said every region must have a good referral hospital, because if you look at the whole of the North, Upper East and all that, Tamale was virtually the main referral hospital. So if something couldn't be treated in Boku or Pusiga or in Navrungo or somewhere, the next place to go was to send the patient to Tamale. And so we said, no, let's have a proper referral regional hospital in Upper East region, so that any referrals from there would come first to the referral hospital here in Bolga. And then if it's difficult to attend to, then you'd either move the person to 37 or Kolebu or anything, because the standard here will be like the same standard you can get in Tamale, So that was the intention. And then we also said we'll put district hospitals, in every district where it is practical, because there are some districts that are so close to each other that one hospital can serve, the two districts. So you don't need a district hospital in every district, but you must have, for instance, if you have one district referral hospital here and there's a district that is close by, you can have a good polyclinic there and then do referrals to that district hospital. So that was the plan. And so we did a survey and we identified where all those hospitals should be built. By the time I left office, we were working on about 36 hospitals all over the country. Some we completed, like the Dodowa Hospital. We call it the Shai Osudoku District Hospital. We finished that one. And for many years, it's the best, hospital, I think, in West Africa. Zero maternal deaths and all that kind of thing. That hospital, because of the facilities they have, are able to give better care to the people in the area, and so they don't have to come to Accra to Reach Hospital or to Kolebu, because they have their own hospital there. So that was the thinking that went into expanding healthcare. Happily, this government has seen the sense in it, and are also touting to provide district hospitals. And so if they do supplement what we have started, but it will be useful for them to finish the ones that we had started that have been abandoned, so that then we can have a better complement, in terms of our public health systems than we currently have.
I think the opposition speak about those infrastructure not completed, being riddled with some bit of corruption and corrupt practices.
Well, investigations have been going on for God knows how many years. I mean, if there were corrupt practices, I mean, they should be taking action against them. I don't have any issue with the fight against corruption. I think that government must be serious in the fight against corruption. And so if you suspect that anything has gone untoward in any particular project or anything, it is important that people should be held to account, just as this government will be held to account when they leave office if there's been some corruption that they have failed to investigate.
You've been touted as one leader that has, increased the road mileage in terms of, tarred roads in the nation. And it is known worldwide that, without connecting, the nation will be near to impossibility. What has been your vision towards connecting this nation?
If you study the developed nations of this world, you realize that transportation has been one of the key infrastructure that has made them reach the stage of development that they did. In America, it was the railway reaching from the East Coast to the West Coast, that opened up America, as a major developing country. It was the new highways that were put in that, propelled America to the stage of development that it is. So my belief right from the start was that a good transport network was important for any country to develop. And so we prioritize the road network, we prioritize air transport, and then also the ports, expansion of the ports.
Right.
And so that's why I started the expansion of Takoradi Port Phase 1, which we completed before we left. And then we arranged money for Phase 2, and we started work before we left, but this government has come to continue it. We also arranged for the construction of the new ports using the MPS partners, of which Gapoha is one, to build the new ports. And it's made Tema ports one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient in West Africa currently. We also realized that the old terminal in Kotoka, Terminal 2, had reached the end of its useful life.
Right.
And the only way you could actually improve it was to build a new terminal and cut traffic into the new terminal and then take your time and then refix this one, And so we asked Ghana Airport Company to raise the money to build a new terminal, which they did, which is the current Terminal 3 that is serving the whole country. As
it looks like it's one of the best.
It's consistently among the top 10,
right.
Airport terminals in Africa. And so that's one of. Then we did the road network. We had both the cocoa roads and the road funds, roads that were financing through the enhanced road fund. And almost every region was benefiting from new roads. We had a sort for the Bolga Boko Pulmakum Road. Work started before we left office. And we had hoped that it would be completed by now. There are several other road projects. We're trying to connect Bolga and Wa, and so we're working on the Tumu Road,
right.
To go through Hang and go to Wa. Unfortunately, when we left office, that project too has come to a standstill. And there were several other road projects. We did the Buipe Tamale overlay because the asphalt was failing, and so we put new asphalt on it from Buipe to Tamale. We're going to do the Bolga to Paga one because the asphalt is failing there too, but I hope that this government will have the opportunity to continue with it. There are so many road networks. We did, if I remember, about 3,700 kilometers, of roads during our period, and they were all over. I can't recount all of them.
One road that when I'm going home and I feel happy passing through is the Fufuso
Road.
I mean,
Fufuso Solar Road.
considering the extra facilities along the road, the markets, the clinics, I mean, it's beautiful. How did you envision that? And maybe if God permits and you come, you should repeat, sir.
You see, I attended the African Development Bank board meeting, which took place in Senegal when I was vice president. Professor Mills made me attend it. And during that discussion at the board, they came up with this concept of what they call development corridors. And it struck me as a very useful program. They said that often when African Development Bank builds roads, the road just cuts through the community, and the communities along the road don't get any benefit from the road because they live there. They are not going anywhere, and most of the time they hardly use the road.
They hardly use.
It is those commuting from the urban centers that use the road. And so the people along the road must get some benefit. And so they, at that time, were considering doing the Awoshi-Pokwasi road. And so it was said that it was going to be a development corridor. And so when they did that road, they built a market, they built 3 schools, they built a lorry park, they provided water to all the communities along the Awoshi-Pokwasi corridor. And so when we decided to design the Sola Fofoso Road, we insisted that it should be a development corridor. So an African Development Bank was very happy to do that. And so all the communities, there's no community along that road that did not benefit from either a school or a market. Clinic. All of them got water. They got a health center. Even Damango town, which is the major, city along the road, they got a new surgical theater, rehabilitation of the Damango hospital. And so that's how come when our colleagues, sometimes very naively say that, oh, this road is too expensive, they don't realize that it's not just the road. It comes with the other ancillary, facilities. We did the same with Kaswa. Yeah, Kaswa interchange. It's not only the bridge. There are 3 bridges in Kaswa, but there are 2 secondary schools, 20 communities got water. We did the 26-kilometer Kaswa-Amasamang road as part of the Kaswa interchange. We built the Kaswa Polyclinic, a whole new polyclinic for Kaswa Township. So if you hear the cost of the Kaswa interchange, you think that it was just to build a bridge. Okay. It was including all the ancillary facilities, associated with the bridge. And that's what we call the development corridor program. And so it's not just the road passing through, but giving additional facilities, to the people who live in the area. And so that's what we did. Unfortunately, the consultants who were appointed by the African Development Bank were an Indian company, and of course supported by the Ghana Highway Authority. It would appear that the supervision of the second contractor, was not properly done. Because if you look at the quality of the road, it was given to 2 contractors. From Fufuso to Damango, the road is holding very well. But after Damango to Sola, you find that either they didn't compact the road surface properly, and so some parts of it have, started to give way. But I think the government should move in quickly and repair those patches so that the road can serve us for a fairly long time.
So, this question comes to mind. How do you feel about the controversy of taking off credit back for the government for projects like the Pokwasi interchange, Tama interchange, and Obichabulamte interchange, which you initiated and found money for?
Yeah, well, I believe that government is a continuum. And so we found the money for those projects. At the time the projects started, they had come into government. And so they continued it. And I mean, it's to serve the people of Ghana. And so once those projects are finished, I mean, all of us would use it. If I'm going back to Accra to help, I'll pass the Pokwasi interchange. So I think that's what government should do. that you continue the projects that you came to meet. With the Pokwase one, we signed the agreement with the African Development Bank for that project before we left office.
So you would have completed
We would
anyway
have,
if you had.
we would have. They actually came and delayed it. I mean, if government hadn't changed, that interchange would have been finished long ago. Okay. It took a longer time. They wanted to look at it, look at the design again, and so on and so forth. And so about another 1 year passed before the actual construction started. Tema interchange, the same thing. When I went on a state visit to Japan, the Japanese Prime Minister, in our MOU agreed that they'll do the Tema interchange for us. And then also there's another bridge across the Southern Volta, a new bridge at a place called Volivo. We signed an MOU on that one too. That is supposed to be done with a Japanese yen loan. That's the beginning of the resumption of the yen loan facilities to Ghana. That one hasn't started yet, and I think it's because of our counterpart funding. We're supposed to put up some money before the Japanese put in their money, and so that has also delayed. Obichebi, we approved it in Parliament, and we had arranged the money, when this government came, and they've continued it. That's how it should be.
Your Excellency, peace and security, you will not step out without, making comments on it. It's known worldwide, and with the United Nations Security and Peace Treaty, all touted the need for peace within humanity. And in times and seasons where, people do not have the right expression to say what they feel, they are bottled up, and that might culminate to, instances of, violence. How do you feel, as a nation, that the peace and security somehow, somewhat, is stifled with per the expression of people in general?
Ghana has attracted a lot of investment over the years because it's been identified as one of the most peaceful, secure, and stable nations in West Africa. And so Ghana has been a preferred destination for many investors. Unfortunately, that appears to be changing. We cannot take our security for granted anymore. One, in terms of crime, and then two, in terms of the possibility of terrorism, terrorist attacks.
Right.
So those are the two main areas that should be looked at. The only way you can deal with it, first, is the causative. And the causative is, say, unemployment, youth unemployment.
Right.
But that's a bigger issue that needs to be dealt with in terms of providing, some purposeful, decent living for our young people. The other way is to check it using coercive force of the state, that is the police service. And the third way is, if you come under terrorist attack, to make sure that your security is ready to be able to deal with
combat it.
Yes. Now, to be able to do this, you need to make sure that you have security services that have a high morale and that people are happy to do their jobs.
Right.
You don't politicize the security services so that people feel dejected and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, some of the reports we receive are not the best in terms of promotions, in terms of positioning people. It's sometimes people believe that they are jumped over because they believe that they identify with some political persuasion, right, and so their juniors are jumped over them and all that. When it happens like that, it decreases morale. And once morale is decreased, you can't get an effective fighting and crime combating institution as you would want to have. So I think that these are the things that government should look at. Armed robbers are becoming more brazen. I mean, in our part of the country, the north, upper east, upper west, After some time in the night, you better not go on the roads because your chances of running into an armed robbery incident is quite high. And so most people, try to get home as early. We hold our market days, now they can't do that. If it gets late, they decide to stay and wait till the next morning. So they'll sleep at the station or something and wait till the next morning before they are able to board a vehicle and come. And even the armed robbers too are becoming sensible. Daytime, so we need, a police service that has high morale, but also has the equipment for, fighting these criminals. In our time, we imported almost more than 1,000 vehicles for the police service alone. That's when we brought these Tundra vehicles, the pickups, and so on and so forth. And so almost every division had sufficient vehicles, for fighting armed robbery. They need bulletproof vests. They need weapons, they need ammunition, they need all kinds of things, to be able to fight crime. And when they don't have them, then the citizens are the ones who suffer. If there's an incident, by the time you call the police, by the time they arrive, the armed robbers are long gone,
Yeah.
Sometimes they complain that they don't have a vehicle,
Right.
And they cannot take a taxi and come to the scene of the crime. So these are some of the difficulties that we face. But we must also be sensitive to the threat of terrorism. And so our people should keep a lookout. It helps. The government needs intelligence to be able to deal with this.
Right.
And so if you find some strange people come into your area, and you find that their activities don't look normal,
We should watch out.
you should report.
And be able to report.
Yeah, so that the security agencies
We'll
come and investigate. Who are these? They are probably just normal refugees who have left their country and mean no harm. Yeah, but it's good to come and investigate and find out, why they've moved here, what they're doing. And so our chiefs and our people who live in these localities should just watch out for people who come in and then just, draw the attention of the authorities to come in from our nation.
I've got a lot of people beeping me, thanking you for your presence, and some asking, get his number for me, get his number for me. But let's go back before you leave. Why select the Upper East region first for your thank you talk?
Well, why not?
Why?
Well, the party decided that we should start from the north. And I feel comfortable. Bolga is like my second home.
Right.
Yeah, I lived here sometime. My brother did his national service here. Actually, he was the national service coordinator for Upper East Region,
Wow.
Alfred. And so he used to live in the flats down there. And so that was my home for several...
That's where I stay. Maybe I might be occupying
his flat. He might be occupying his flat. And so Upper East is a place I'm familiar with. I love here. I come here frequently. And right from even when I was a child, when Mr. Ampofo was the regional administrative officer, when they built Catherine Red's house and all that, Ampofo was my father's friend. Wow. And so we used to come to Bolga and visit. So it's a place I'm comfortable with. And so when they said we should start from the north, I said, let's come and start from Upper East Region.
Very last, this is what you said. I value legacy. That's your words. To me, a man's time on earth should be defined by the number of lives he has impacted. Your last statement. Why? I follow you a lot, so I take some of your words. Yeah. Why this statement?
You see, in the end, all politics and development is about the human being and what impact whatever you do has on the lives of the people. And so for me, even though when you sit in the presidency, you're undertaking policy that you assume would have an impact on the lives of the people, you still need to go to the ground and see what its impact is on the individual. Because you look at the larger picture when you're sitting in the presidency, we're putting out this policy, and this is what we hope will happen. But if you don't go and monitor and see what the impact really has been, sometimes you find that your policy rather is adverse, to the welfare of the person. And so I think that everything we do, we must consider the human being and what impact your policies have on that person. Every policy you do must be aimed at making a positive impact on the growth and development of your citizens. And so that's what one looks at. Sometimes the individual can get lost in the larger picture. When you see a picture from afar, it looks very nice. But when you come closer, then you see that the painting, there are holes here and all that, And so it's always better to look closer than just at the larger picture.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I want to thank all the people of the Upper East region. I know times are not normal.
Right.
There are complaints about lack of fertilizer for the farmers and so on and so forth.
Right.
But I think that we should all, get our loins together and then see how we can adapt. Climate change is creating erratic rainfall and all that, and so they are not normal times, but I think that we should all put on our thinking caps and see how we can find alternative means. I mean, I have a farm, and so I'm into agriculture myself.
Right.
So I know how these things are. I'm looking at alternatives to fertilizer. We've got a manual that shows how you can make your own compost fertilizer.
Organic.
Yes, organic.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that these are things we need to start looking at so that we stop our overdependence on chemical and imported fertilizers. Yeah.
Great talking with you.
Thank you.
You've been impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope to meet you many times.
Kibo, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right.
And thank you so much. Professor Nana Pukuajiman in the studios, and also the Honorable Felix Ofazukwachi. Thank you so much for gracing this program. It's always been nice having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.